Welcome to TruST TV. I'm Ruth from your communications team, and I am so excited to be joined today by comedy legend Jake O'Kane. Jake, you're very welcome. How are you?
All good. I think it's more like leg end than legend. I think would be closer to the truth. I think that'd be.
Tell me, just in case there's anybody listening to this or on the podcast or watching us here, and on the unlikely event they don't know who you are, tell us a wee bit about yourself. Who is Jake O'Kane and what do you do?
I'm a stand-up comic who does a bit of TV work. I write a column for the Irish News of a weekend. I do a wee bit of acting when they need someone who's old and ugly, and just anything else that'll get money. I prostitute myself at a heartbeat to do. Yes, so that's pretty much what I do.
And in addition to all of that, you've been very busy over the last couple of weeks and months, really helping the health service, and you have promoted and really encouraged people to get their COVID vaccine. And I'm just really curious to know, why is that? Why did you feel that was something you wanted to support?
Because I'd like an audience when this is all over. So I think it's a good idea to promote them and remind them that if they want to be there in a year's time to watch me on stage around the theatres, it'd be a good idea to get a vaccine, which has been miraculously, you know what I mean? It's astounding that they've managed to come up with this, and that there are people who still arguing not to get it. Just baffles me. It just will never cease to astound me that we are so fortunate. We are in a part of the world where we're able to get a vaccine. You know what I mean? The vast majority of the world aren't able to access a vaccine, and yet here we are. We have the National Health Service. They are giving us a vaccine that'll save our lives, and I have no time for anti-vaxxers or any of that nonsense. So I rant about it. That's one of the other things I do. I rant. Things annoy me, and I take off on a rant. And I have to burn myself out. So this weekend's column in the Irish News is all about anti-vaxxers and all about the nonsense that's going on and the abuse that the health service staff are taking. You know what I mean? Right across the UK, they're getting abused because they're trying to save lives. You know, it's insane. And I think people who have a public profile of any standing, you just have to stand up now. You know what I mean? It's time people stand up and say, enough of this. No, we're not going to allow this to continue to happen. If that's what people believe, fair enough. But people in the public eye, I would ask them to be very, very careful what they're saying, what they're putting out, because this all feeds back into the mania and the madness of the anti-vax and the COVID deniers. So yeah, that annoys me.
We're all allowed we rant, and we appreciate your support. I suppose what was you make us laugh so much and have done for many years, and they say laughter's the best medicine.
No, I prefer penicillin, to be honest with you. I prefer the vaccine. I'll take the vaccine over. If somebody's got a choice between the vaccine and a comic, I'll still take the vaccine. Give me the vaccine first.
Good. That's what we like to hear. But then if you think about this pandemic and everything that it has done, and the sheer upheaval for everybody across the globe, and the stress, if you like, this has caused, are you able to see this through a comedy lens and laugh at this? Does that make it easier to cope with?
No, I had a brain fart at the start. I had a minor nervous breakdown. You know what I mean? I had the great misfortune of actually having read a few books. And, so being a neurotic by nature, my first response is to turn my clothes off and go running down the street naked. That's my first. So luckily I'm married to a sane woman, and she sort of landed me back down on earth. But my first response was to build a moat around the house and buy a shotgun, and just because as far as I was concerned, this was zombie Dawn of the Dead stuff. I had a small business which I closed when nobody else was closing. I was closed 6 weeks before anybody else. And in a funny sort of way, my neurosis has worked out well, because I've taken this seriously. You know what I mean? Maybe now it took me a while to basically just touch down again and to realize, this is to be handled. And but I would hate to have someone like me in a job like yours. You know what I mean? To be phoning up and going, hello. She's now gone. You know what I mean? She's dug a hole somewhere out in the back garden. So the comedy came late when I was able to look at the madness of my own reaction, and to be admit, I've always been able to laugh at myself. A lot of my humor is based on my own madness and my hypochondria and all the rest of the stuff. I don't get a headache; I got a brain tumor. If I got a pain in my side, my liver's going to fall out my arse. You know what I mean? There's never any simple
Oh, but
So
do you
that's where the
Google
humor
it?
came.
You look up, do you
Huh?
Google your symptoms? Do you do that?
No, God, no, no,
No.
no. I don't know. No, I stay well away from that there because I wouldn't get out of bed if I did that. You know, so I try to be. And people laugh at me because people say you're good to the health service, and I say this is an investment. I'm going to be meeting them all pretty soon. You know what I mean? It's not completely, magnanimous or me being big-hearted.
Oh,
Um, but it's been able. I think the comedy thing is that this sort of weird sort of mentality that a comic has is we can look at sort of dark stuff and just take something out of it. Cutting your own hair. Who thought they'd be their own barbers? And I don't have much, but it annoyed me, and I decided to cut my own hair in the middle of this, and the wife filmed that. And never cut your hair with a pair with beard trimmers. You know what I mean? It does not work, especially when your wife doesn't want you to cut your hair and won't help you cut the back of your head. You know what I mean? And you have to go up to the bathroom and do the true mirror thing, and you're going the wrong way, and you lose an ear. All this, it's
I'm here. I'm loving your bookcase behind you for your, at least especially for your Zoom calls. I'm sure you've read every one of those, have you?
that's a green screen.
Is it?
No.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, I have read all those books, but I'm now at an age where I could start reading them again because I forgot what's in them. So I never have to buy another book. There's enough books there to do me now for whatever the rest of the time I have. But that's a problem. But that can be a curse as well, because it was because I had read way back in the 90s a book called Hot Zone, which was all about it was a representation of what had happened when there'd been a very short outbreak, thankfully, of Ebola in the States. Scared the life out of me. And then you pick up stuff as you go along over the years. And so when this happened, I think if you were reading it all, and I think if you had any knowledge of the world, everyone is saying that this was there a 50-50 chance. The World Health Organization said about 10 years ago this is going to happen. Bill Gates, who knows a bit, he said it's going to happen. And I love the lunacy of humanity that people are now saying that, it's all Bill Gates. This vaccine, they're putting a tracer into you so Bill Gates can. These are people who their own wives don't care where they are. Do you know what I mean? Bill Gates doesn't care where they are. He doesn't want to trace you. Nobody wants to know where you are. So this is what gets me. This is what.
I love how you're out of your jammies, or is it jimmies? I call them jimmies, but all through this you had Jake and Jimmy's on social.
At a couple, I just get see the editing involved. I've done a few of those, but I think most people, like right now, I'm naked from the waist down. Just the PGDs. Listen, most people are sitting, doing these things, and they've got their jammies on, or they're doing whatever. And they make the terrible mistake. Some of them make the terrible of standing up halfway through, and then people, turn the camera off. Somebody turn the camera off.
Oh dear.
No, it's. I think a lot of people were, as you know yourself, people are working now and they're in their own homes, and it's we started this and somebody started digging outside. There hasn't been any digging outside for the last 2 years, but now this starts and there's somebody digging a hole outside. So
yeah. And here, Jake, you have a shop, haven't you? Did you say?
I have a small shop, yes.
And so when this all hit and you were more ready than most, how did you manage all of the social distancing with your customers, or what about masks? Did they all wear their masks?
I shouted people. I shouted. I shout. I shouted for the first, I think, 6 months. I've signs as big. You could see these signs in space. Don't come in without a mask, and yet they're still coming in without masks. And I'm saying you can't come. No, it's all right. I've got a lanyard. I've got a lanyard. I'm exempt. I don't care. You still can go outside. Eventually people got used to wearing the masks, but occasionally you get people coming in saying, and there are legitimate people who, and this thing killed me. I know one old man who is crippled with asthma, and he's still in wearing a mask. And his explanation was, I'm only in for 2 minutes, son. And yet you get other people, and they think because there's one guy come in, he says, I've got asthma and emphysema. And I said, you should be home in one of them wee plastic domes. You shouldn't be out. You shouldn't be go away and get, but the classic was one young fella walked in, no mask, and I says, put your mask on. And he says, Jake, I can't wear a mask. And I says, what? Asthma? What? Emphysema? What's the story? And he says, no, I've only got one ear. And I'd forgot he'd got his ear bit off, right? He only got one. I had to go, fair enough, son. That is one excuse. I cannot argue. You get a bye ball.
We'd
And I
never
said to the
do
wife later,
that.
she was saying to me, "How did you forget a guy had got one ear?" And I said, "It's North Belfast. Half of the guys in North Belfast have only got one ear. It's not that unusual a thing."
I must ask our IPC colleagues, they might have a view on that as to how he could adapt a mask so he could stay safe and keep
Well,
his distance.
I've got the whole screen stuff up, and it took me 6 weeks to adapt to get the shop, because I had staff and there's people working. One of them does have asthma, one of them's diabetic, and as far as I was concerned, I didn't want that in my conscience. I wanted to do everything I could to make sure that it was as safe as possible for them.
What about the old hand hygiene? Have you got the alcohol hand rub and everything in the store?
I got to the stage I was afraid somebody might light a match. If somebody had lit a match within 2 feet of me, I'd have been calling the fire. But no, people are walking by going, "Are you drinking? Are you drinking? Are you?" So yeah. But I was doing all that before the pandemic. I'm such a neurotic. I was, I love that. I love the smell of that dial alcohol in your hands.
Yeah, can't beat it. It was made for
Can't beat it.
Oh dear. Jake, see today, before I come on to you here, we are having still huge pressure, continuing pressure on all of our hospital beds. There's just so many patients coming in with COVID that we are having to care for. And, I'm thinking maybe some of our staff are listening to this on the podcast or watching us now. They'll be having a wee break from that. And it's maybe the only break they get during a long, long shift in all of that PPE that you're talking about. What would you have a wee message for them?
It must, punters like us will never understand. We will never be able to comprehend what's happened over the last year. This is a war. The medical staff, our health workers have been in a war, nothing short of that. And I'm sure a lot of them went through things that, it'll take a long time to deal with and come through and all the rest of it. And when they see the news and they see idiots out marching, against COVID regulations and against what we're trying to do, it must be very disheartening. They are the minority. I think that our health board must remember they are the minority. They're not the majority. The majority of people are like me who respect and love you and encourages and are very appreciative of what you do. You know what I mean? And that's never going to change. You know what I mean? That other minority don't represent us, never will represent us. And, we're the people sitting in the casualty unit. And if some guy kicks off, I'm going to beat out of them before the security ever get to him. You know what I mean? See these people who are threatening medics. I hope to God I am anywhere near when that ever tries to happen, because they'll get to meet a medic. And this is the reality of where we are. You know what I mean? We aren't taking for granted what you're going through. We aren't taking for granted what you're having to experience. We wish that you were paid more. We wish it was a fair world. And, all we can do is get our vaccines. Try, any of us who have a public profile, to say, encourage people to get the vaccine, to turn up, for young people to turn up. And the argument is, I'm not going to get it. It's not going to affect me. It is. It will. You know what I mean? Because you could then maybe transmit it to somebody else. And this vaccine it doesn't care who you are, what age you are, where you are. If you're a human being, it's dangerous. So that's the message, is not to lose hope. And hopefully I'll see you in a year time talking nonsense on a stage somewhere, and we'll begin to get back to some normality. But it'll take time. Do you know what I mean? This is the other thing people don't factor in. There's a knock-on effect to this. If COVID beds, if nurses and staff are there dealing with COVID patients, that then means other patients aren't being treated, who will have to be treated. Mm-hmm. So this tsunami, this wave will take some time, to come down.
Jake, thank you so much. I know
Pleasure.
All of my colleagues are going to really appreciate you taking the time to say all of that and to show your support to us. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Nice talking to you.
You too.
Take care.